Welcome to session 4 of our risk management series. Today, I'm going to talk about creating a risk management plan, the how-to in 6 easy steps. Step 1, identify the historical risks. What has happened before? Go through the archives. Step 2 and 3 require the project plan. Step 2 is identifying that plan. Once you know how you're going to build the project, you'll be able to identify risk. 3, the project plan, it will provide the framework for recording the risks. Step 4 is to analyze the risks and identify the likelihood and impact for each risk. Step 5 is to communicate this information. A risk register is a standard format to do so. Step 6, final step, plan the responses, mitigation strategies, and communicate these plans to the project management team. Now let's look at each one of these in more detail. Step 1 is to review what happened in previous projects that are similar. There's no sense in repeating yesterday's mistakes over and over. This information is available in your Global Risks database or from your Lessons Learned files. Determine what went off the plan in past projects and what were the biggest challenges and how were they addressed. Record the risks, the ones that are relevant to your current project. Step 2 is to develop the project plan. Without a plan of how you're going to build this project, you can't put together a comprehensive risk management plan. Many of the risks come from the how or when or where and even who is doing or managing the work. Until those are identified, the risk identification really is not going to be complete. The project plan, the how we're going to build this, also provides us with a framework. It gives us a structure, timelines, location information with which to organize the risk management plan. Once you have the project plan, the next step is to review it. Review the complete plan and identify any risk or any uncertainty in the tasks as you see them, in the time allotted to complete those tasks, in any of the assignments. Who is doing a job is always significant. Look for uncertainty in suppliers, in start dates, in finish dates, and in budgets. If you're using RiskMP, just simply check off the tasks which have a risk on the left-hand side, then identify the risk event in detail. Describe in words what each risk or uncertainty is. You can review risk event lists from previous projects and assign those or type them out in your own words, a description of that event. Now, to complete the description of the risk, we also want to identify when this risk will become an issue, when this risk will impact the project. The impact also, it can be either impact on the quality of the project, a schedule problem, a delay, or a cost overrun. Include also an estimate of the likelihood that this risk is actually going to happen, and as well assign an owner to each risk. This person is responsible for monitoring the risk and preparing mitigation alternatives. As we know in management, anything without an owner doesn't get done. This analysis forms the heart of the risk register content. Now, for the more complex and harder to define risk events, we want to do a more in-depth analysis. Consider using a tool such as bounding the risk. In this case, we look at the risk and we identify all the possible scenarios, all the eventualities. We identify the best possible outcome, the one that you hope will happen, the worst case scenario, the catastrophic but also probably most unlikely version of events, and then we identify what's most likely to happen. For each of these scenarios, we describe the impact and we examine or try to anticipate the advantages of each and the disadvantages of each outcome. We also assign a likelihood of occurrence, a probability to each one of these outcomes. These parameters allow you to properly prepare for all of the eventualities. The analysis will often help the project manager to determine the better solutions to the risk at hand. In future sessions, we're going to take an in-depth look at bounding the risk because this is a very powerful tool. Step 5, risk registers. The whole point of creating this risk analysis is to communicate this new information about the project to the team. So create the risk register, print it, disseminate it, distribute it, communicate this information. The risk register is a PMI, Project Management Institute, standard method of recording and communicating the most relevant information regarding project risks. A review and update of the register is recommended at each project management meeting, either weekly or bi-weekly. Communicate, distribute, update the information regularly. I can't emphasize that enough. Often for larger projects, P3s, institutional clients, we're required to demonstrate an understanding of project risk and potential delays and cost overruns even before the contract has been awarded. For these clients that request a risk analysis of their project, an in-depth one, print out some of the executive summaries that you now have available to you if you're using a tool such as RiskMP. These illustrate, first of all, an understanding of the project, the cash flows, and the maximum exposure that you have in terms of costs and delays, as well as the expected results. This also displays an understanding of when risk events will happen through the timeline of the project, and also what impact each one of these events will have independently. The variety of reports will support your efforts in demonstrating your expertise. Now that we have the risks identified and analyzed, we need to figure out what we should do about them. Step 6 is to create a response plan for each risk in the risk register. The response plan will contain a key person responsible for the plan execution and for monitoring the results, a record of dates which will include the date the plan was first formulated, as well as a date when it's complete. At every project management meeting, whether there is progress or not, these plans should be reviewed and updated. There are a variety of possibilities on how to address a risk, and when you're doing a response plan, keep these in mind. We can accept the risk, acknowledge that it may happen, and leave it at that, or we can build a contingency plan and have that plan ready if the risk happens. But essentially, we're accepting the risk, and this is passive. We can mitigate the risk, take action to reduce the likelihood that this risk will happen, or take action to reduce the impact that the risk will have, or both. We can transfer the risk to another company. Insurers typically take on risk. We can transfer through contracts to a subcontractor or up the chain back to a client, or to suppliers, fabricators, or even to the government. We can avoid risk and eliminate the problem by removing clauses from contracts or avoiding a particular supplier or subcontractor. Consider all of these possible strategies when creating your response plan. So, to recap, the 6 steps are: gather the historical information. There's no sense in repeating yesterday's issues. Develop the project plan. This is where to look for uncertainty and risk. Review the project plan and identify risks against each step. Complete the risk definition, analyze the risk and determine the impact on cost, quality, and the schedule. Communicate this information, print, disseminate, review regularly at each project management meeting, and develop a response plan for each of these risks. Forewarned is forearmed. Know that you are doing the best possible prep work. Thank you for participating in this session on creating a risk management plan. Please join us for future sessions in the Construction Management Risk Management series, where we will examine many of these steps that we talked about today in more detail. For more information, please visit our website, riskmp.com.